Hello, welcome back to The Healthy Practice from Right Up. I'm your host, Ellie. Now, when was the last good night's sleep you had? Was it so long ago you can't remember, or was it just last night? Well, sleep is an essential area of your well-being and one that you need to be prioritising as you run your practice. But it's also often the first thing that we sacrifice when we're busy. To discuss the fundamentals of sleep health and what you can do to improve yours, I was joined by sleep expert Dr. Lindsay Browning. Dr. Browning is a UK-based chartered psychologist, neuroscientist, author and sleep expert. She founded Trouble Sleeping in 2006 to help companies and individuals with better sleep. Dr. Lindsay and I spoke about techniques to improve your sleep, the optimal conditions that you need in your room, like the temperature of your room, and also how to stop worrying about things you can't control when you're trying to fall asleep, which was really helpful for me because I am a notorious 3 a.m. waker-upper. So there was loads of stuff in there that I took away with me that I'm going to start using immediately. My cat also makes an appearance at the beginning of this episode, so if you can hear her, I'm really sorry about that. So let's jump into our conversation with Lindsay. Welcome to The Healthy Practice, Lindsay. It's fabulous to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I'd love to know what drew you to specialise as a sleep therapist and how do you help your clients?
So sleep therapy is a really niche thing, although most general counsellors, general psychologists, therapists deal with sleep because it's one of the first things that breaks when something else goes wrong. If you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you have PTSD, sleep is always a part of that. But I'm just a sleep person. So I did a degree in psychology, and then I did a master's in neuroscience, and then my doctorate was specifically studying and treating insomnia, so looking at how worry, rumination affect insomnia and how you can treat people who are really struggling with their sleep because of that. And I didn't come into this as someone who has a sleeping problem. I've always been quite a good sleeper, but I came of it more of a scientist, psychologist, interested in the field and really interested in sleep. But then when I was doing my doctorate, I sort of was introduced to the world of insomnia and how actually hugely damaging it is, and so many people struggle so much with their sleep. And I realised, because back then I graduated in 2006, which is a long time ago now, and back then there were literally 10 people in the UK who were specialists in sleep, helping people with insomnia. That was just crazy. So once I'd graduated, I just thought that's what I want to do. I want to help people because there is such a need and just such a shortage of people. So that's how I came into it.
That's amazing. I can't believe there were so few. And has that changed? Are there more now? Yeah, much
yes,
more.
Although there are a lot more people. It's getting better. But the trouble is it's a non-regulated field. So literally anybody can be a sleep expert, like literally anybody. So my backstory, I started up Trouble Sleeping back in 2006 and I worked for a while, and then had some kids, travelled the world, lived in Singapore, lived in America, came back to the UK to sort of properly relaunch everything. And at that point, I thought, well, I better make sure that my qualifications are up to date, make sure I'm ticking all the right boxes. And I looked up, what you need to be a sleep expert, and the local people in the area who were then being sleep experts. One particular lady who came up highly ranking on all Google and really high. Oh, what are her qualifications? What sort of things has she been doing? I looked her up. She's a mum. I was like, okay, well, that's good because so am I. I also have a doctorate in insomnia, but I'm a mum as well. So great. But unfortunately, literally there's no qualification necessary. So on the one hand, you might speak to someone who's a sleep expert and they might be fantastic, and hopefully they are. But you might speak to someone who is, and I'm nothing against mums, I'm literally a mum myself, but being a mum surely doesn't make you a sleep expert. I mean, it just doesn't. So I find it very difficult for people seeking help to know who to trust because it's not a regulated field. A bit like nutrition, actually. Nutritionist isn't a regulated field either. So I'm a chartered psychologist. I have 3 degrees. Arguably, I am qualified, but there isn't a tick box thing, a recognised status for people to trust. So that can be difficult in the field. There are lots of people doing sleep now, but how many of them you would say are adequately qualified? that's hard to know.
Very hard to know. And is there a register? Like, because I know like counsellors, psychotherapists, they can go on the BACP. Is there anything like that for sleep therapy or?
No, there isn't
really
currently. So there are all
difficult.
sorts of different things. So you can, I'm a chartered psychologist with the BPS, the British Psychological Society. You can be like the thing is, you can be a counsellor like a BCP or BABCP. There are all sorts of counselling, but sleep is such a tiny part of that. In fact, being a clinical psychologist, you're learning about helping people with being a qualified clinical psychologist. The amount of time you would spend studying sleep on a 3-year course would be negligible, absolutely negligible. And I've studied it specifically for 3 years. So there just isn't the infrastructure there. There are courses on CBTI, which I'm sure we'll talk about, which is cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia, which is a specific treatment for helping people with insomnia. And if someone's been on one of those courses, I think that's a really good sign. If someone has, if they're a registered counsellor, if they're a registered CBT therapist, if they're a registered therapist in another practice, then I think you can trust that they're going to take it seriously and have done the research. If they're not a member of any professional body and they're just a sleep expert, then I think that's where you might want to question, what advice are you getting? Are you just getting someone's opinion who had a bad night's sleep and found that drinking some lavender sleepy tea helped them and they're now giving that advice to the world?
Yeah, it's quite scary actually, because sleep does actually affect us so much that it's quite scary that it's not regulated. But I guess it's like that for a lot of things. So let's look at the fundamentals of sleep then. Why is getting a good sleep so crucial for our well-being, especially for our audience who are healthcare professionals? Why is that so important, and what are the fundamentals there?
Well, when I graduated back in 2006, even then, sleep was still kind of seen as an inconvenience. It was a bit of a waste of time. People would boast about how little sleep they got by on, because the less sleep you get, the more productive you can be. And as I'm a therapist, I'm a working mother, there are only so many hours in the day, and therefore, if you can make some more time somewhere, sacrificing sleep, that seems like a really great plan. However, the science just shows so categorically that getting enough quality sleep is associated with so many physical and mental health benefits. It's undeniable. And sacrificing sleep in order to do other things is like sacrificing your healthy eating plan because you're doing more work, not going to the gym because you're too busy. And we know that we're better if we do some exercise, if we eat healthy food, if we get enough sleep. But when you're in a busy season of life, those things naturally do tail off. And we can't beat ourselves up on that all the time, because there are sometimes, you're a mum or a parent of young kids, or you've got an elderly relative that you're caring for. You've got some kind of crisis business-wise in your life. You can't go to the gym as much as you want to. You can't, make those home-cooked meals at home. Something's got to give. But that needs to be I understand I'm not doing the best for myself right now because of the situation I'm in, but once things are beyond this, I'm going to do the right things for me. And sleep is one of those things that is genuinely really, really important. And okay, sometimes we might sacrifice it, but that needs to be something that we know is a short-term measure, and it is detrimental to our health, really.
Mm-hmm. And sort of on that, how much sleep do we need a night? Because I know there was this famous rumour that Margaret Thatcher only had 4 hours sleep every night, and I don't know how she survived on that.
But she didn't. She got Alzheimer's. And
right, yeah.
There is a very, very strong link between not getting enough sleep and developing Alzheimer's disease. And both she and Ronald Reagan both developed Alzheimer's. And obviously there is no categorical proof that that's why, but there is a strong association that continually getting not enough sleep puts you at a significantly higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. So the point is, we can survive on 4 hours sleep, absolutely, but you're not thriving, and at some point you're going to see the consequence of that. Just like we can survive on eating only McDonald's, absolutely.
Yeah.
But are we going to be thriving? Are we going to be doing the best for our health? We can, survive not doing any exercise whatsoever, but of course that catches up with us, and sleep is the same as that. Just because you can survive on it doesn't mean it's good for you. So the recommendations are for a working age adult, so 18 to 64, it's that you should be getting somewhere between 7 to 9 hours sleep regularly. So that means not a feast and famine, not some days getting 3, some days getting 12, like 7 to 9 most days is what you need to be healthy. But a couple of caveats on that. It doesn't mean 8 is the magic number. And I hear that all the time. You know, even this morning I was doing a piece for a journalist and they said, you know, obviously we know 8 hours is the right amount. I'm like, well, actually, no, because it's a range. That's like saying we should all be 5'9". Like some people are much shorter, some people are much taller. Some people need less sleep, some people need more. And just trying to get 8 because that's the middle number is really unhelpful. It's about getting enough sleep for you and your needs. And the range 7 to 9 is like it's a range. There are people who need less than that, people who need slightly more than that. If you are getting less than 6 or more than 10, if you need more than 10 hours every night and you're not getting, you're not even getting 6, then that puts you at significant risk of increased health risks, early mortality, that kind of thing. If you're 7 to 9, that's amazing. If you're 6 to 10, you're probably fine. As long as you're feeling refreshed and that you feel like you're getting enough sleep, that's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, excellent. That's good to know. And what are the main stages of sleep? So, and what are their functions? So the only one I actually know is REM sleep, and I don't know anything else. So what are the stages? So
when we fall asleep, our brain doesn't switch off. It goes through a whole host of different kind of activities. Our body goes through we're regulating hormones, we're repairing our muscles. So when we go to sleep, we have different parts of sleep, different sleep stages. So we have 3 main parts of sleep. We can divide them further, but I like to talk about the 3 main parts for ease. Light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep. So when we fall asleep, we'll go through light sleep, and then deep sleep, and then back through light sleep, and then we'll go to REM sleep. And then another sleep cycle will happen. They're kind of like waves going across the night like this. And every hour and a half-ish, 90 minutes to 110, we'll go through light sleep, deep sleep, back through light sleep to REM sleep. And then the next one will happen after, for the next hour and a half-ish. And there are several changes across the night. So at the beginning of the night, we tend to get more deep sleep. And as the night progresses, we tend to get less deep sleep and more REM sleep. And you can get sleep, wearables, sleep trackers to sort of tell you which part of sleep you're in. And they're somewhat accurate, but not entirely. But people can obsess about exactly what percentage of the night they're spending all these different parts, which can be unhelpful. And one of the biggest, most common questions I get is about deep sleep. So light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. So deep sleep is where we produce growth hormone. REM sleep is when we primarily dream, although we do dream in other parts, but that's primarily what happens. And light sleep, we have all sorts of other regulatory processes, some memory consolidation. Memory consolidation happens in all the stages, but different kinds of memory get sorted out. People seem to think deep sleep is the good bit and light sleep is the not good bit. And honestly, I get calls endlessly from people saying, Dr. Browning, can you help me? Because my sleep tracker tells me I'm only getting 20% of the night in deep sleep and I need to get the full night in deep sleep. Or, I'm getting too much light sleep, or how can I stop getting REM sleep? It's like, well, they're all important parts. Like REM sleep, if you're having bad dreams, that's a sign that there's something going on in your life. It's not a sign that you shouldn't be dreaming. We all need to dream. It's incredibly important for processing emotion. And as therapists, our clients, when they're going through something, a difficult time, their brain will be processing that during REM sleep. It's literally overnight therapy. And for us, we have to process what we're interacting with and, the people that we've met and how that's affected us. And we'll be processing that in REM sleep. And if the things we're dealing with are so emotionally big, then our dreaming sleep can become equally big, too big, and we can't stay asleep and we'll wake up having a nightmare. But that doesn't mean to say we should stop the dreaming. It means actually there's maybe too much that we need to process, and maybe we need to spend some time during the day to process it. And deep sleep, yes, it's really good for us, absolutely. But it doesn't mean it's the most important part. The metaphor I tend to use is deep sleep is like broccoli. Broccoli is really good for us, absolutely. If you only ate broccoli, though, would you be healthy?
No.
Absolutely not. because you need to have carbohydrate, you need to have protein, you need to have calcium, you need to have all the different vegetables, carbohydrates. You need a balanced meal to be healthy. Equally, you need a balanced night's sleep to be healthy. You need light sleep, you need deep sleep, and you need REM sleep. They are all important. And fixating on just one of them, and honestly, you will not believe how many people fixate on the deep sleep, and they think they need to get the whole night in deep sleep, and that's so unhelpful.
Mm-hmm. How often, or does it change for everybody? How much time do you spend in each of those phases?
Sure. So when we're 21, which I'm long since 21, we tend to have them, as an adult, we tend to have younger adults, we tend to have the most deep sleep, because again, that's when we produce growth hormone. Kids, babies, they have really deep sleep, and a lot of it because they're, for one thing, physically growing a lot. So the older we get, the less deep sleep we tend to get. So I'm over 45. There's no way I get the same amount of deep sleep I had when I was 21. A 21-year-old would probably get about 22%-ish of the night in deep sleep. They would spend about 25-ish% of the night in REM sleep, and about 55% of the night in light sleep, and the remainder being some time awake, which is normal. As we get older, we tend to get a bit less deep sleep and a bit more light sleep. And the trouble is, as we get older, our risks of all sorts of things increase. A risk of Alzheimer's, a risk of everything. And is it the fact that our deep sleep reduction is causing those things, or are those things causing a reduction in deep sleep? We don't know which it is. We just know that they're correlated. They come along together. We don't know that one causes the other. Again, as we get older, we tend to get a bit less deep sleep, but that isn't necessarily something that we need to obsess about. And lots of people start to really worry. They're tracking their sleep. They're getting frustrated about it. But it's like wrinkles, or your hair going grey. Yeah, it's annoying. Yes, it's part of aging, but we can't fight it. Our deep sleep is going to reduce a bit as we get older. We're going to get wrinkles. We can't, it's just part of aging. And to some extent, we just have to accept that our sleep isn't going to be the same when we're 40, 50, 60 as it was when we were 21. Just like our muscle tone isn't the same, our hairline isn't the same, all that stuff. So we want to try and be the best that we can be, but not be so fixated and worried about trying to create something that's unobtainable.
Yeah, something that's not going to happen. How does menopause come into play here? Because I know that can affect sleep, and is that the same kind of thing? We're not quite sure which affects which. Do the hormones come into play there? Is something happening in menopause with sleep and quality of sleep?
Yeah, so I'm a woman. Women have it terrible with sleep because, well, we tend to statistically need slightly more sleep than men, but we also are much more likely to have problems with our sleep. And that's almost entirely, but mostly to do with hormonal fluctuations. So every month when we are menstruating, our hormones are all over the place. We can have monthly difficulty with sleep. When we get pregnant, we have difficulty with sleep. When we stop being pregnant, we have difficulty with sleep because our hormones are changing so much. And then when we go through menopause again, and our hormones are all over the place, sleeping issues are probably one of the most common problems associated with that. But added to that, there's the perhaps unfair distribution of chores, caring for older relatives, caring for younger children that disproportionately tend to fall on women, adding to stress. Stress also impacts our sleep as well. So yeah, menopause is a time when our hormone fluctuations definitely impact our sleep, but also it's the physical attributes of menopause that also impact our sleep, as well as the hormonal surges. It's the night sweats. You wake up covered in sweat, and you can't go back to sleep at that point. If you're hot, you're having a hot flash. It's hard to sleep. If you're covered in sweat, you can't go back to sleep. If you're having an adrenaline surge through menopause, you'll feel so panicked you can't go back to sleep again. So yeah, menopause is a time when sleep is really badly affected for women. And often that can then turn into an ongoing sleeping issue, even once the hormones are managed, because people have got into a pattern or a stressful place as a bad relationship with their sleep that it becomes self-fulfilling.
Yeah, so like an association with the bed or the bedroom or sleeping that then triggers maybe that stress or panic, and then thinking, oh, I can't get back to sleep. Oh, we're so lucky as women, aren't we? We have such a great time all the way through. So let's think about the like optimal conditions then. Are there any optimal conditions for sleep? And if so, what are they? What can we do in our bedroom or with our clothes or anything like that?
So there's sort of two caveats to this. I talk a lot about balancing things, but that's because, I'm a sleep expert, and my day-to-day job is helping people who are panicked. They are desperate because they can't sleep. And the other load of people are people who just want to improve their sleep a bit. And there are two different approaches depending which of those people you are. A bit like if someone has anorexia, then getting them to get on the scales regularly is fueling the problem. But if someone is just, I probably could do with losing a couple of pounds, then regularly weighing yourself can be a helpful tool. Same with sleep. If your sleep maybe isn't quite perfect and you want to optimize it, you want to biohack it, you want to be better, then there are lots of tips and tools you can do to improve that, and we'll talk about that. If you're someone who is really not sleeping well, you go to bed, you toss and turn for an hour, 2 hours, you're waking up at 3 a.m, you're really stressed, you're really anxious, then putting loads of, you should have your room at this temperature, you should drink this before bed, you should try this meditation, that's just adding so much more pressure to that. So if your relationship with sleep is pretty good, but you maybe could improve it, then things that you could do are make sure that your room is comfortable. And that involves, noise, light, and temperature and physical comfort. So obviously we sleep better in silence. So if you don't have double glazing, maybe double glazing would be good. Or if you live somewhere really noisy, then maybe if you've got noisy neighbours, barking dogs, a white noise machine to mask those sounds can be helpful. If you live somewhere quiet and you've got double glazing, then a white noise machine is kind of pointless because it's only going to mask sounds that aren't even there to start with. Darkness, yes, we sleep best with blackout blinds, it's true. However, if you get used to sleeping with blackout blinds, you're kind of creating a level of perfection that's hard to take on holiday with you, or when you go on a date to somebody else's house, or your kids go to granny's house and granny doesn't have blackout blinds. So I am a big fan of good enough rather than trying to aim for perfection, because if you aim for perfection, anything less is a challenge. So make sure your curtains are dark, dark enough, but you don't have to go as far as blackout blinds. Of course we sleep better, but then, like I said, you might be setting yourself up for failure elsewhere. Temperature, we sleep best in a cooler bedroom, which is easy to talk about in the winter, not so much when there's a heat wave and we don't have aircon. But ideally for an adult, and it's different for young children and babies, for an adult, somewhere between 16 to 18, maybe 19 degrees Celsius is kind of the Goldilocks zone for a nighttime. Because as we fall asleep, our body temperature drops by about a degree. If the room you're in is too hot, then your body temperature simply can't drop, and then you'll struggle to sleep. That's why in a heat wave, if the room you're in is 20 degrees, how is your body temperature going to drop? It's not. So that's why we can really, really struggle to sleep in a heat wave. And then, of course, mattresses, pillows, bedding. People don't change their mattresses as often as they should. They really don't. They don't regularly change their pillows. And those things have a finite lifespan. And, the financial crisis, cost of living crisis, like obviously telling people go out and buy brand new pillows, mattresses is easier said than done. But have a think about your mattress. And if it's more than 8 years old, consider, is it maybe time to replace it? Because that, they clog up with dead skin cells, maybe mites, they lose their structural integrity, and you find that maybe you're tossing and turning, you can't fall asleep easy because you're just not comfortable enough in bed. So that's sort of the physical comfort of bed. And then other things, we sleep best when we're calm, when we're relaxed. So anything you can do to make yourself more relaxed is going to help your sleep. And that's where we get a whole host of tips and tricks for sleep. Yoga's good for sleep. This is good for sleep. Anything's going to be good for your sleep if you find it relaxing. If you hate yoga is not going to be good for your sleep, because you're going to be doing yoga before bed and going, oh my goodness, I can't do that.
I hate yoga.
Yeah. So as a blanket rule saying people should do yoga before bed, if you like yoga, yes, absolutely. But if you don't, that's not going to be helpful. Same with classical music. I mean, I happen to love classical music, but if you hate classical music, but you've read that you should listen to it before bed, again, you'll be lying in bed going, oh my goodness, I hate this, it's so boring,
yeah.
or whatever. So it's about doing something that you find relaxing. If you're relaxed and calm, you're going to sleep better. And relaxation doesn't just start in the 20 minutes before you go to bed. We're talking about during the day. You can't just be really stressed and anxious all day and then just switch it off and try and go to sleep, because that's not how life works. So if you're really struggling with sleep and your life is really stressful, then realistically, rather than just concentrating on that 10 minutes before bed of doing some slow, deep breathing, think about earlier in the day. What can you do to dial back some of that stress and anxiety in your life that's then still in your system, that cortisol, that your brain is still worrying, that's still causing you to sort of struggle at night. And then the last thing, I could talk about a million things, but the last thing for now, regularity of sleep is probably the most important thing. It really is. That means going to bed at a fairly consistent time and waking up at a fairly consistent time 7 days a week, which is boring. I know that's boring. I mean, who wants to do that? I want to go up, stay up late and party, and then I want to sleep in at the weekends because my kids are older. But the reality is, if we shift our bedtime, wake time a lot, we're giving ourselves jet lag, basically.
Right.
If you go to another country, Greece, France, even, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours time difference, you experience that time difference, that jet lag feeling. And yet we do that to ourselves. Sometimes we'll go to bed at 10, other nights we'll go to bed at 1, and sometimes we'll get up at 6 or 7, then other days we'll try and get up at 9, 10. That's a 3-4 hour time difference. And our body can't adjust to time differences that well. So if you are struggling with sleep, or you want to be super healthy with your sleep, then go to bed at a similar time 7 days a week and set an alarm and get up at that time 7 days a week consistently. Is going to be really great. Your circadian rhythm, your internal 24-hour clock will be robust and strong. You'll feel so much better than the sort of the feast and famine approach that often people do when they don't sleep enough during the week and then they'll have huge lie-ins at the weekend. It's if you can make it more standard, that's better for you.
That's really interesting because I love my routine. Like, I love it so much. And when I have a week off or a couple of weeks off and I think, oh, I can stay up late, oh, I can lie in. And I don't necessarily, when I'm doing that, I don't necessarily think that's I'm messing with my routine, but I always feel bad. And then by the end of that holiday, I'm like, I cannot wait to go back to my standard work routine where I'm in bed at 10 and up at 6. That's what I do every day. And I feel better for it. And I think that's, it's sort of something's clicked there, because when I have, even at weekends, I do this as well, and I'll just lie in and I'll feel awful if I lie in. And I always feel better when I get up at the normal time that I get up 5 other days a week. So I'm going to commit to that now. And it's going to be a weekend thing as well, because it makes me feel bad. And I think that's probably why it is like a jet lag thing. So really interesting. But yeah, because sometimes I'll be in bed till sort of 8:30 and that's late for me. And I'll feel groggy the whole day, even though I've had lots of sleep. And I think, go me, I've had loads of sleep. I actually feel worse for that. So
you probably missed, so when you're getting up at 6, you get bright sunshine exposure, light exposure first thing in the morning, which helps you to feel more awake and alert. Whereas if you're sleeping in later, you're not getting that signal at the right time to sort of to tell your body what time it is and when to feel sleepy, when to feel awake. So and I go out in the morning. I go out at 6 as well to walk. Yeah. So I do get that. Every day. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that if someone doesn't get enough sleep during the week because of, you've got kids, job, whatever, you physically can't get enough sleep during the week, then absolutely you should allow yourself to catch up at the weekends. I'm just talking about if you have control and power to sleep enough every day, that's much better for you. But if you can't, then do, be like with food. If you can't eat healthily during the week for some reason, then absolutely have extra super good healthy meals at the weekend. You don't have to be like, well, no, I have to be consistent. But if you can eat healthily all week, that would clearly be better for you. Same with your sleep.
Same with sleep, yeah, if you can do it. And I certainly can. There's no excuse. So I will be committing to that, because I think that will make a huge difference to me. And so worry and stress is obviously a big factor in insomnia, and it's also a huge factor for a lot of our listeners in the caring profession. So what advice would you give somebody who just can't seem to get to sleep because they're worrying too much? What can they do about it?
So the reasons we don't go to sleep when we're worried or anxious is because biologically, evolutionarily, when there is something wrong, our body, we don't want to go to sleep, because when we were cavemen, if there was a problem, that problem is probably there might be a wild animal coming to attack us, or a fire out of hand, or another caveman with a club. So if there's some kind of anxiety, worry, then our body, our fight or flight mode, our breathing is a little bit faster, our heart is racing a bit more, our cortisol, adrenaline are pumping to make us able to deal with the problem, the fight or flight, to fight the problem or run away. Which is why we're all alive today, because our ancestors had that and they did run away from the wild animals and didn't get eaten and went on to have children, hence us. Mm-hmm. But of course, when you're lying in bed at night, you're not, hopefully, being faced by wild animal attacks in your bedroom or any physical threat, but your body doesn't know the difference between physical threat and mental stress. If you are worried about paying your mortgage, if you're thinking about your stressful job that you've been dealing with, if you're thinking about, oh my goodness, tomorrow's going to be a really difficult day, I've got some really difficult people I have to deal with, then your body and your brain knows there's a threat, that worry, and it reacts biologically in the way it always has done, which was really helpful when we were cavemen, not so helpful now. So you're in bed and your body is keeping you awake to fight the problem, fight or flight. So what we need to do is we need to dial that back. So we can do that in a sort of our brain worrying way, and also our physical anxiety. So the physical anxiety, that's where relaxation techniques can be really helpful. So slow, deep breathing, or doing some progressive muscle relaxation, or doing some relaxing yoga if you like. There's some stretching, anything, listening to classical music if you like that. Anything that is going to calm you down, calm your body down, slow that heart rate, slow that breathing down, get the cortisol, the adrenaline down, is going to help you fall asleep. But if it's your mind that's worrying more than just the physiological anxiety, you're not feeling panicky, but your mind's just going, then how do we stop a busy mind? And that's probably the number one reason people tell me they can't sleep, is because their mind, they get into bed and their mind just bing, goes a million miles an hour. Well, the reason it's doing that is because those things going around your head are important. And we're too busy. You're dealing with people, you've got clients, you've got patients, you've got busyness, you've got your home life, you've got your friends, you've got your social life, you've got your hobbies, you've got Netflix to watch, you've got social media to scroll through. We're busy. And then we turn the lights off, lie down in bed, and in that dark and silence of the bedroom, your brain goes, brilliant, we've got time to think now. I really wonder if we should move house. Or, why did I say that to so-and-so earlier? Or, is my relationship going anywhere? Should I end my relationship? Whatever it is, your brain just goes, brilliant, we've got time at last to think. Let's start thinking. Or you're so exhausted that you fall asleep, but then at 2, 3, 4 in the morning you wake up and your brain is going, great, let's think all this stuff. And of course, it's the last thing we want to do at 3 in the morning, is to be lying there thinking about all this negative stuff. So you can get techniques that push those thoughts away. And that's where things like listening to sleep stories, you can get like Headspace, Calms apps, and they'll give you something else to think about. They're kind of like watching TV, or just they're distracting you, which can be helpful in the short term. However, you're not really solving the problem there. You're not dealing with those thoughts. Yes, you're pushing them away. We can count sheep. Counting sheep is a similar thing, like cats count sheep, or let's count back from 1,000 in sevens. All those things are about making your mind not think about the negative stuff. But the reality is your brain has to think about the negative stuff because it's important. You need to figure out what happened earlier in the day, or are you going to move house? Are you going to change jobs? How is your relationship? And constantly just staying busy to not think about it. Your brain's going to think about it at some point. So the reality is we need to make time during the day to do that thinking. We can't just constantly be brushing it under the carpet or hiding it. The odd Headspace kind of calms thing to sort of calm your mind down occasionally can be really, really helpful. But that shouldn't be the long-term strategy. That should be today was a really stressful day. I just need to go to sleep. But at some point I need to think about that stuff. And of course, with technology of today, like with the phone, we literally are never bored. And when we're bored is when our brain can think about that stuff. And we literally are never bored. So make some time to be bored. Like just find 15 minutes during the day, 1-5, that's it. I mean, we all honestly can find that. The busiest person in the world can find 15 minutes. And ideally, get a piece of paper and a pen and just write down. Just expressive writing. I'm sure there's a technique used in like sort of therapy, but just write whatever's on your mind. Now, if you've got an issue, like your mum has cancer or you're worried about changing jobs or whatever, then write about that. If you don't know what's on your mind, just free write. Well, I listened to this podcast yesterday and Dr. Browning said I should write, so I'm writing. This is really stupid. Okay. Well, I'll talk about today. I went to Tesco's and they didn't have the eggs I liked and that was annoying and blah, blah, blah. Just write. It doesn't matter.
But something will come out probably
exactly.
Eventually when your brain goes, oh, we're thinking. Yeah.
And then it goes, and then if you do this consistently day after day, and it does take, commitment to do this, then when you're lying in bed at night and your brain goes, oh, we should think about, oh no, we don't need to, because let's do that tomorrow during our writing time, our worry time, whatever you want to call it, journaling.
Time. Yeah.
And like forest bathing, walking the forest and journaling, all these things are actually the same as this. They're all just giving yourself some time to be, which we have to intentionally do nowadays. Go back even 30 years. This was the norm. People had time to think, but especially if something is really negative, because sometimes maybe your relationship is not going well and you're thinking, do I need to get divorced? Do I not? Like sometimes those kinds of thoughts can be overwhelming and you can think about nothing else. Like the entire day, that's all you can think about.
Yeah.
And actually this kind of writing, expressive writing, 15 minutes can be so helpful, because when these thoughts pop into your head, oh, should I get divorced? Should I not? Oh no. Think, okay, I'm going to think about that during my worry time. You're saying, yes, brain, this is important. I'm going to think about it at 6:30 tonight or 4 o'clock in the afternoon or whenever it is you decided. You're saying, you're not saying I'm not going to think about it. You're like, not yet. Put it on that shelf. Like, I'm going to deal with it, but not right now. And again, that can be hugely, hugely helpful day to day when you feel so overwhelmed with those big, big topics that just feel like they're just taking over your life.
And eventually, so if you practice that for a while, a few weeks or however long it would take, your brain should automatically know that time is set aside, and then should hopefully stop interrupting you at 2-3 in the morning when you wake up.
Absolutely.
So it just takes a bit of practice, because I use an app actually for my journal, and I do write down things because it was getting a bit too much for me, the waking up in the night thinking just absolute rubbish, and it does help, and I do that religiously now, and it has improved things.
And sometimes that as parents or even in a partnership, we can get this really wrong, because as parents of young children, maybe we're really busy again and we don't get a lot of time with them. The time we do get is bedtime. We're tucking them into bed, we read them a story, and then, oh, and how was your day today, darling? Oh, well, mummy, it wasn't great because Johnny said this to me. Oh, that's a shame. Good night. Off you go. That's not the time for thinking about those things or talking about it. And yet that's what we do. So again, be really mindful of those conversations you're having with your family or your partner. Do you lie down in bed and at that point start talking about the bad stuff that happened in your day? You're associating thinking, worry, difficult conversations with your bed. So then your brain thinks, yeah, bed is the time for thinking about this stuff. So really try to have those sort of conversations, and absolutely have them with your children. It's so important to have that relationship, but try and make it on the sofa downstairs, not associated with bedtime. Otherwise they'll then learn themselves that bedtime is the time when you should think about all the worries of the day.
And then they take it into adulthood, and that's perhaps maybe what's happened to us, or we've been conditioned to that, and it's just the cycle, isn't it? Maybe 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, that's quite a good time, and you get it all out of the way, and then you can I like that idea. And can changes in our sleep be a sign of something deeper going on? So burnout, a health issue.
Definitely.
What should we be looking out for if sleep is changing and we don't know why?
So if your sleep starts to go wrong, it's often a warning sign that there's something else going wrong in your life, for sure. Taking a long time to fall asleep is often associated with anxiety. Like if we're stressed or anxious, That's, if you used to be a good sleeper and now you're tossing and turning for half an hour, 2 hours before you fall asleep, maybe that's a sign you're quite anxious. Depression can be a sign of early morning awakening or oversleeping, because often if someone's depressed, they might sleep way longer, kind of escaping life really, because life's difficult. But also if you find that you're waking up a lot throughout the night, you feel like your sleep's really restless, or you're not feeling like you're sleeping properly in those nice deep sleep cycles. Again, that could be a sign that there's lots of stress and anxiety, because again, if we were cavemen and there was a problem, a threat, then sleeping really deeply would be really dangerous, wouldn't it? Because if you're really deeply asleep and a wild animal comes to attack you, you're going to be dead. So if we're stressed, we tend to wake up more. We'll hear the dripping tap. Normally maybe we'll sleep through our partner's light snoring, but if we're in a stressed time, then their snoring is the most annoying thing in the world, and we're like, oh my goodness, like what is wrong? But for the 10 years before that, we've slept fine and their breathing hasn't changed. It's our tolerance for it, because we're just generally in that more heightened sort of stressful state. So yeah, if you're finding that your sleep's not like it was, it's probably a sign that there's something else going on in your life that maybe you should address, and that we can't burn the candles at both ends as well.
No, definitely not. No, that's good advice. Do you think the workplace has a role to play in supporting people in getting good sleep, and any strategies that they can put in place?
So a few things. Obviously, I do a lot of like work well-being sessions, and I think that's great, because going into a workplace and talking about sleep and giving some advice and talking about what's normal and what's not normal, that kind of thing can be really good. But with work, perhaps people's circadian rhythm could be, this is something that the world is changing slightly. So we all have a circadian rhythm, which means that's when our body makes us feel awake and when our body makes us feel sleepy. And there are sort of larks and owls. You might have heard of that. So some people tend to be owls, which is sort of night type people who want to stay out later and wake up later in the morning, which you clearly are not, Ellie, because you're more a lark, I should imagine.
Yes.
So with the workplace, something that we can do, and lots of people are in the middle who are neither larks nor owls. They just they go to bed at what would be considered a normal time and wake up at what would be considered a normal time. Personally, I'm a massive owl. I could stay up to 2-3 in the morning every night, and I'd very happily sleep in until 11. But the point is, the rest of the world isn't geared up for that. Neither are my children or my clients. So no. When you're someone like myself as an owl, you have to fight that, because your nature is saying, let's go to bed really late. But of course, 7 a.m. wake isn't forgiving, and all that will happen is you end up getting 5 hours sleep instead of a full night's sleep. So you have to remind yourself to go to bed. However, what workplaces and what I do is you can tweak your working day to make the most of when you're your peak, your best. So I am not personally my best at 8 in the morning. I am just not, let alone 6 in the morning. So I don't schedule clients at 8 in the morning unless I really have to. And I do lots of work a bit later, because that's when I feel more me. If you're a lark and your work office allow, maybe starting a bit earlier to make the most of the fact that you are up bright and alert and you're ready and you're raring to go, and 7, 8, 9 a.m. are your peak hours when you're full of energy and drive. Make the most of that. Whereas if we're pushed into a 9 to 5, everyone must do these hours, that doesn't necessarily fit everybody as well. So making the most of your times. But yeah, and another thing, and lunchtime nap. If I ruled the world, lunchtime naps are actually quite good. And there's lots of evidence to show that napping actually can be quite helpful. And when we're working from home, maybe it's more appropriate or possible that you could have a 20-minute kip at lunchtime. And there's lots of evidence to show that having a little nap just after lunch boosts productivity, it boosts your alertness. It can be really beneficial for the rest of the afternoon. If you can just pop upstairs or have a little in a meeting room at work, a little empty meeting room, that would be really great. There are lots of places in like Japan, other countries that genuinely promote napping, because they know that having a little nap, and we're not talking about a massive sleep, we're talking about a little nap, like about 20 minutes, can be so helpful for just topping it up, like having a snack, just give you a bit more energy kind of thing. So yeah, if your workplace are able to give you a little, nap time, that'd be great. But if you're not sleeping well at night, then actually napping during the day can be unhelpful, because then you're just taking away from the sleep drive at night. So we're talking really about people who are sleeping enough during the night. The sleep isn't a problem, but they just want, they can just really give you a little boost for the afternoon.
That's really good, because a lot of our listeners are private practice owners. They run their own businesses, so they can actually tailor their hours. And maybe that's something they've not thought about is, working later in the day or working really early. Because like you say, I am a lark. I really love working between the hours of 7 and 12. And then by 3 o'clock, I am useless. So I'm really lucky that I can work those hours. But yeah, I think that's really good advice. And what's one thing that a busy self-employed practice owner could do to improve their sleep, let's say this week?
I think look at how much sleep you're actually getting, because I think probably a lot of us, I think there was a stat recently showing that 3/4 of Brits get less than 6.5 hours sleep a night. Now, we know that 7 to 9 is the recommendation. So that means that most people aren't getting enough sleep. And that's not because they all have insomnia, it's because we're not prioritizing it. In the same way that we're probably not all getting 5 fruit and veg a day, or exercising our 30 minutes 3 times a week, or whatever we're supposed to be doing. So have a look at how much sleep you're actually getting. Because if you're going to bed at 10:30, 11, and then scrolling on your phone for a while, and you're getting up at 6, 6:30, there's no way you can get 7 to 9 hours sleep. So, if you are not going to bed as early as you intend to, just through rubbishy stuff that we all do, just scroll through, watch these videos, whatever, be more intentional about your time, because actually the next day, who has ever woken up the next day and go, oh gosh, I'm so glad I spent that hour scrolling through Instagram last night instead of sleeping? No one. And actually, if you track your sleep and you're getting enough sleep, you're going to feel so much better. You're going to feel better in yourself. You're going to feel less anxious. You're going to feel happier. But physically, you're going to do wonders for your body. It helps your immune system. It decreases your risk of heart attack, stroke, certain types of cancer, dementia, diabetes, obesity. So many things. Getting enough sleep is so massively good for you. And it's a lot easier than going to the gym. I mean, you should definitely go to the gym as well. But in reality, just go to sleep on time and you'll feel a lot better. But it's hard to, really identify that and do that, I know.
Yeah, I think prioritising sleep's a really good idea. Prioritising it certainly over scrolling social media, and putting your phone away a good few hours before bedtime. That helps me. I don't know if that helps everyone, actually. I don't know if that's a rule, but there was there's some disputed, it's very topical right now. There's an article just coming out. The blue light thing, that blue light is a frequency of light that we get from the sun, but also from devices. And bright blue light can stop us producing melatonin. However, the use of TV screens, phones in the evening before bed, it was widely taken as we mustn't do those things at all. But actually, more recent evidence shows that the impact of that is actually quite negligible, and it's how we use them. So, for example, watching an episode of something interesting might help calm you down, relax you, and then you go to bed. But if you're just scrolling through your phone and you're forgetting to go to bed, that's a different thing altogether, because then you're not going to bed at 10, 10:30 when you plan to. You're still there at 11:30, midnight, and you're like, oops. So that's when, if you don't have that willpower to go to bed at the right time, maybe don't have your phone next to you in the bed. And the content of what you're watching might be really stressful and horrible, and that might just then make
if you're watching the news.
Especially at the moment. Are you losing sleep over managing your practice? Well, let WriteUp take the stress of running your business away. Join over 13,000 clinicians who have already discovered how WriteUp can simplify their work life, leading to less stress. With features like video consultations, diary management, cashless payments, and one secure place for all of your patient records, you'll rest easy knowing your practice is running smoothly. Start your free trial today and experience the peace of mind WriteUp can bring. Visit writeup.com, that's WRITEUPP.com. Before I let you go, Lindsay, how would you rate your own quality of sleep at the moment? At, let's say, between 1 and 10, how would you rate yours?
I'm going to be really honest. It's good. Like probably a 9 or a 10.
Amazing.
But it doesn't mean I'm always that good.
No.
And if sometimes life happens, and like when COVID first hit, when COVID happened 2020, my sleep went because my entire business, like the rest of us, everything, and the worry about the world, everything went wrong. And even the best sleeper in the world, and I'm a really good sleeper generally, doesn't mean I'm a perfect sleeper. It doesn't mean I'm immune to stress. And if something stressful happens, my sleep will be affected. But I understand that that's normal. And it's about accepting, yes, right now, because this financial issue or this, or you might be going through a very stressful time right now. You can't force yourself to sleep brilliantly when there's something stressful. So just ride it through, and the knowledge that, this is what it is right now because I'm going through whatever, and trying to do the same thing. So I'll go to bed at a regular time, wake up at a regular time, try and do all the right things. Once I get through that stressful thing, sleep will go back to normal. But sleep goes wrong when we start to panic and go, oh my goodness, my sleep's gone wrong. This is terrible. I have to try and force it to be better. And then that trying to force yourself to sleep well during a crisis actually makes it so much worse.
So maybe just get up, read a book, relax. Just if you can't sleep, you can't sleep, and that's how it is. Yeah, that's good advice. So where can our listeners follow you and find out more about your work?
Sure. So I'm on all social media at Dr. Browning Sleep, at Dr. Browning Sleep. I've got a website, troublesleeping.co.uk, where there's lots of blogs, and you can get a newsletter once a month if you want to. And you could read my book, which is Navigating Sleeplessness.
Oh, fabulous.
Which I wrote during COVID, and it was published in 2021. And it's just a self-help, really good, just general, easy read. I wrote it to be not a scare you, oh my goodness, if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to die a horrendous death. But if you're not sleeping, don't worry about it. Here are some things you can try. It's that kind of book.
Yeah, and you can gently work through it. Lovely. Fabulous. Thank you so much, Lindsay. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you today about sleep.
Thank you.
And that's the end of today's episode. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Lindsay. I found this episode so helpful personally, and I hope it helps you too. Remember to check out writeup.com for all of your practice's software solutions and to start your free 30-day trial. No payment details are required. Thanks for listening to the Healthy Practice podcast. If you enjoyed it, please do leave us a review and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.